This video is possible thanks to contributions to the Existence University Patreon by viewers like you. Thank you. Introduction. In July of 2021, I published a video titled Comp Positivism, Sociology, and Technocracy. The video deals with the historical events which started our path towards socialism, Marxism, and the technocracy we see in the world around us today. The video demonstrates that the works of Claude Henry du Rouvet Comte du Saint-Simon and his student Isidore Marie Augustin Francois Xavier Comte reintroduced the world to Plato's philosopher king, but replaces the philosopher king with a scientist king. The promotion of scientist kings leads us to what I will refer to as the cult of science. Despite the name, the cult of science has little to do with science itself, and is in fact a new religious order, which copies directly from the religious practices of groups like Christianity. It may well then be argued that the cult of science, in some cases, may be called the religion of science, depending on whether or not the followers are following a living scientist or worshipping a dead scientist. The cult or religion of science can best be summarized in a comedic form, as seen in the television show Always Sunny in Philadelphia, in the episode Reynolds vs. Reynolds, The Serial Defense. This episode perfectly encapsulates issues that this very video here will be presenting for you. There are two characters. One is the member of the religion of the church, and the other is a member of the religion of science. Neither character will be supported by the content of this video. Despite being on opposite ends of the debate, both characters are exactly the same. They merely believe in two different books. During this episode, the character of Mac is attempting to prove his credibility as a thinker for the purpose of being the judge in a mock trial between the characters Dennis and Frank. Mac represents the religion of the church followers. The character of Dennis represents the religion of science followers. Dennis, like a YouTube debunker, resorts to name-calling and appeals to scientific authorities for his arguments. Mac goes on to accurately demonstrate that an appeal to authority is a logical fallacy, as all the smartest men on the planet were wrong sometimes, and therefore a blanket generalization to trust scientists can cause one to, quote, look like a bitch, end quote. Mac, unlike Dennis, is willing to admit that he holds a bias towards the saints and God, and that he is unwilling to change his mind because of that. Whereas Dennis pretends that his mind can be changed by facts. But as he can only ever appeal to certain authorities, there's no way to demonstrate that he's actually capable of changing his mind in the presence of new facts and ideas. This is demonstrated when Dennis, after name-calling Mac insane and a fool, Mac asks him if he is a fool because he believes the saints more than scientists, and Dennis says, yeah, because you just read the words of a bunch of guys that you never met, and you just take it on faith that everything they wrote was true, which is something Mac already stated was the case, thus demonstrating at least a shred of honesty. Mac retorts, and what makes you think what your scientists are writing is any more truer than my saints? Dennis responds in the classic YouTuber debunker channel style of getting upset and again appealing to the authorities of science by claiming that, quote, there are volumes of proven data, numbers, figures. There are fossil records. Mac at this point, mocking Dennis in return, asks, have you seen these fossil records? Have you pored through the data yourself, the numbers, the figures? When Dennis says, well, no, no, Mac then ends the argument there, stating, let me get this straight, Mr. Reynolds. You get your information from a book written by men you've never met, and you take their word as truth based on a willingness to believe, a desire to accept, a leap of, dare I say it, faith? Dennis, again replying like a common YouTube debunker, replies with a, I don't even know how I'm supposed to respond to that, as if being dumbfounded by what he holds to be ridiculous is a form of argument against it. This argument wins over everyone but Dennis, who, as a member of the religion of science, cannot be swayed, just as Mac, the member of the religion of the church, cannot be swayed. But those not in one religion or the other see that Dennis is in fact no different than Mac, and they put themselves on the fence of the argument, claiming, quite rightly, that Mac has created a reasonable doubt to not take one side over the other until they can check the data, the numbers, the figures, the records for themselves. This is similar to a claim I made in the Compt positivism video, that the more the religion or cult of science invokes science to uphold their beliefs, the more people are driven into the arms of flat earthers. And why not? The cult of science says that you are nothing but material waste, doomed to die, and if you disagree, then you are insane and deserve nothing. Whereas the religion of the church at least says that you are loved and that you are special, and they actually leave their homes to test their hypotheses as opposed to mocking others from their armchairs. This in no way states that the religion of the church, or flat earthers, are correct, but it goes to show that there are groups of people that merely believe in the Bible, i.e., in the books written by men they don't know, and these books have been edited by men to which the original scientists have no control over the content and form of the modern texts. It is just as likely, in this view, that the King James Version of the Bible is a fraud compared to what was originally written, as the textbook on biology is a fraud of the original works of certain past scientists. And just like the Church Bible, the passages which don't match the new narrative are rejected and hidden away. The science Bibles also have highly educated scientific works and scientists removed for no longer matching the new narrative, and are hidden away. As an example, Pasteur, a bachelor's of chemistry who barely graduated, is praised, despite him having failed the majority of the experiments and recanting his own work on his deathbed, whereas the works of Anton Beauchamp, called the Master, who had a master's in pharmacy, and being a doctor of science and a doctor of medicine, along with 7 other professorships and multiple honorary titles, and who empirically proved Pasteur wrong, has been stripped from the science Bibles, as it goes against certain political and philosophical ideas. Therefore, to begin, we must first re-examine what it means to, quote, do science, end quote, and what it means to have a theory. 1. What is a theory? A theory is, quote, an idea or set of ideas that is intended to explain facts or events, end quote. Those in the cult or religion of science attempt to distinguish this definition from a scientific theory, but conceptually, the theory part remains the same. The addition of scientific merely adds the context that the explanation is about a physical phenomenon, and the evidence and ideas are gathered with a certain method. They use the fact that, because they hold one method as higher than another, that a scientific theory is therefore true, and any other type of theory is therefore false. This is the basis by which the cult or religion of science then goes on to hand-wave away anything that disagrees with their narrative. It will be at this point in my video that the majority of the cult will click dislike, or write a nasty comment, and will click away. Most in the cult are incapable of critical thinking, and will use the fact that I am properly defining a theory as evidence that I am anti-science, where in fact, I am a true defender of science qua theories. I merely, and accurately, understand the proper critical thinking required of a scientist outside of the religion of science. The thing about theories is that they are not laws. They are not facts. They are the things that are used to explain facts and can be overturned or adjusted as new facts are discovered. For example, the Wikipedia page for scientific theory states, quote, "Some theories are so well established that they are unlikely ever to be fundamentally changed. For example, scientific theories such as evolution, heliocentric theory, cell theory, theory of plate tectonics, germ theory of disease, etc." End quote. However, this statement is fundamentally untrue, as it undermines the concept of a theory in the first place, and can be easily shown by scientific articles suggesting that the theory of evolution is in need of an update. In fact, of the list provided by Wikipedia, I would suggest that the only one that is not currently in need of changing is the heliocentric theory. As I stated above, the work of Antoine Béchamp proved Pasteur's germ theory wrong, and what Béchamp discovered and provided physical evidence of also puts a hitch on cell theory and evolution. We will discuss this in a future video. The only point this video will continue on with is that any and all theories can be wrong given new information. And just because one theory is currently the best explanation does not mean that the theory is fact, and, philosophically, never can be a theory and a fact at the same time. A scientific law is a statement about the relationship between facts. A fact is a simple, basic observation. 2 + 2 = 4 is a fact, as it is a simple, basic observation that when a line in the sand next to a line in the sand is placed next to a line in the sand next to a line in the sand, there is then a line next to a line next to a line next to a line. And no matter what words we use to denote the number of lines, the number of lines remains the same. A law, like Newton's law of gravity, does not require a theory, as it merely relates those physical facts to one another without explaining why those facts are related. If one day we discover that gravity is not what we think it is, Newton's law of gravity will still calculate the correct numbers. This is the flaw of the statements, quote, "follow the science," end quote, or, quote, "trust the science," end quote, as those statements have lost the context of what a theory is, meaning they are not asking you to question the science, which is the entire point of science, but rather to take a theory handed down to you and believe it. This results in scientists that question and even disprove old theories as quacks, and for political sake, universities strip them of their credentials for questioning the narrative. This becomes a lot more obvious when a new fact is presented to the, quote, "scientific community," end quote. And then you get articles and YouTube videos titled like, "Scientists discover an impossible blank." If scientists discover a new fact, it is a fact and therefore cannot be impossible. What the article or YouTube video means to say is that this new fact undermines an old theory, but like Mac and Dennis, they are too dug in to consider changing their mind, and therefore the fact is some sort of impossibility. For us to proceed to the next section of this video, we must understand that any and all theories can be undermined with new facts, but that doesn't then automatically mean that all theories are dead wrong. This is the dichotomy between Mac and Dennis. At this moment in the video, the Dennis-like people are raging, and the Mac-like people are cheering. But I want to state clearly here that the Mac people are also in for a rude awakening. Just because the Dennis-like people are fools for their approach to science does not in any way go to suggest that the Mac-like people's approach to religion or anti-science is any less foolish. Both parties are equal in their foolishness, and both parties are acting to undermine the true purpose of science and the purpose of having theories. 2. Handwaving is not science. Based on the premise that science is that which one follows, and is that which is not called quackery or religious, the dentist types replace critical thinking with appeals to authority and mockery. So long as they do not accept anything that a conspiracy theorist or religious practitioner says, and so long as they hand wave away anything that does not fit their narrative, and replace it with an insult to defend the science Bibles, then they are engaging in reality. So say they. Likewise, the Mac types do away with critical thinking with appeals to authority and mockery, so long as they do not accept anything that a mainstream theorist or scientific practitioner says, and so long as they hand wave away anything that does not fit their narrative and replace it with an insult to defend their religious Bibles, then they are engaging in reality. So says they. Ignoring your intellectual opponent and offering nothing in return besides mockery is not a pursuit of truth. Hand-waving away others for the sake of your dogma will not allow you to grow as a person, and will not get you closer to the truth. Both parties state that they only want to deal with reality as it truly is, but both parties will just as easily reject reality the moment it doesn't fit their narrative. 3. The establishing of an establishment. Ayn Rand wrote an essay which can be found in the book Philosophy, Who Needs It?, called The Establishing of an Establishment. This essay can be encapsulated with a single basic idea. Experts can only be experts according to other experts, and anyone outside that field of study cannot be an expert, and therefore cannot be said to challenge the experts as false experts. If you disagree with an expert, it is because you are not an expert. If you are a leader of a certain group of researchers, whether that is in science or religion, and you are called to help determine if a student has reached the level of an expert, you will have to judge that student based on your experience and knowledge. But say that student's research proves that you are in fact not a proper expert, but rather a dogmatic believer whose theory is incorrect. By promoting that student to the level of an expert, you will have simultaneously put your entire life's work down the drain, and will be forced to become a student to this new developing theory. You will be saying that you are, in some form, a fraud who has no right to be judging if students have become experts in the field. Thus, to save yourself from humiliation and risking your pension and position, you deem that student not to be an expert, as everything they presented goes against your theory, and anyone that goes against your theory can easily be said to not be an expert of your theory. Therefore, the only students that will ever be deemed to be experts by such a panel of experts will be students that parrot the experts that are judging them. If you attempt to outlaw such practice, you must turn to politicians and judges to whom are not experts, and those non-experts will need to call in the experts of the fields along with the students that claim those experts are frauds, and have non-experts decide which of the two sides are the real experts. But these politicians and judges cannot ever actually pick a side that is the true expert, as they themselves are not experts, and therefore any decision they make will be flawed. As the students will have less power over the experts, the judgment will most likely fall towards those experts which have been giving the politicians and judges more tax money and lobbying money. In the slim chance that the student wins such a case, does that by any means prove that the students are more correct than the experts? No. The decision by political pull or court case will not prove either side as the true experts. It will simply either create a new establishment or solidify the old establishment. Thus, the only solution to this problem is that individuals think for themselves by listening to both or all sides of the topic and come to their own conclusions. Nothing should be taken in as dogmatic truth. All sides should have the freedom to state their positions, and the individuals wanting to learn should be free to work through the issues themselves. This means that students should not be taught what to think, but rather, students should be taught how to think. Announcement. In order to begin the pursuit of knowledge by teaching students how to think, a new series on this channel has been created called Existence University's Dangerous Mind, where we will go through various topics of all sorts and natures, presenting multiple points of view, and will, without relying on dogma or experts, step through the muddy trenches, forming new questions and topics that will take you through some deep, dark rabbit holes. And we will see if we can't work our way back out into the light, emerging with who knows what new insights and perspectives. Comment down below what dangerous topics you would like me to cover in that new coming series. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.